Coming up on Arirang News. South Korea is gripped by a bitter cold wave with the mercury dipping down to the lowest this winter so far. Heavy snow is likely overnight for parts of the country with widespread disruptions expected. Rising household gas prices are leading to soaring heating bills, putting pressure on household finances. The blistering cold snap is adding even more concerns. Ahead of lifting the indoor mask mandate next week, South Korea sees the lowest COVID-19 tally reported on a Wednesday since last July. But 1 in 5 new confirmed cases turns out to be reinfections. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in South Korea, and thank you for joining us on Arirang News. It was still freezing cold today, the day after the 4-day Lunar New Year holiday here in the country. People were met with blistering cold weather. Mercury plunged across the nation while concerns linger over expected snow. Our Han Sung-woo leads our coverage tonight.
With Arctic winds traveling south, Wednesday was the coldest day South Korea's seen this winter. It was about 6 degrees below zero here at Seoul's Nambu Terminal Station at 3:30 p.m. Wednesday, but the temperature went down to as low as negative 19.3 degrees Celsius early in the morning in the city's Dongjaku district. The wind chill factor made it feel another 6 degrees colder in the region, at minus 25.7 degrees. Hit hardest were the mountainous parts of Gangwon-do province, which saw the mercury drop to lower than negative 25. Even the coastal city of Busan went down to as low as 12 below zero, and it's led to quite a few disturbances to daily life.
It was so cold that I couldn't even drive to work today. My car battery died.
I thought my scalp was going to freeze walking outside earlier today.
The Korea Meteorological Administration is projecting a maximum of 7 centimeters of snowfall in Seoul on Thursday, leading officials to extend public transit's rush hour period, during which the subway and city buses operate at a more intense rate, by 30 minutes in the morning and the evening. Meanwhile, in the southern resort island of Jeju, officials have increased the number of outbound flights so that Lunar New Year holiday goers who weren't able to fly due to the strong winds and snowfall on Tuesday can head back home. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
As prices of gas go up, concerns linger over higher heating bills, particularly in times of extremely cold temperatures. The nation's lawmakers have spoken out about the matter, saying more needs to be done. Here's our National Assembly correspondent Lee Si-hoo with the details.
As the cold wave takes over the Korean peninsula, many households are being hit with high and rising energy bills.
Prices of gas used by households in South Korea this January rose over a whopping 38% compared to the same month last year.
Once the government-run Korea Gas Corporation that imports liquefied natural gas, or LNG, sets the wholesale price, the retail prices for households are determined by each city and province. Last year alone, the wholesale price rose 4 times, rising over 42% in total. And according to data released by the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, the import price of LNG rose over 40% in December of 2022 compared to the same month the year before. The rise comes as the global energy crisis is being driven by factors such as the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, the price of electricity rose over 13 Korean won per kilowatt hour in the first quarter, which would add around 4,000 Korean won to the monthly bill of a 4-person household. The government is expected to raise their price of electricity further in the second quarter. Over at the National Assembly, politicians from both the ruling and opposition blocs actively voiced their opinions on the matter. The head of the Democratic Party, Lee Jae-myung, on Wednesday suggested an extra budget bill to support rising energy bills. Lee also suggested more tax on energy companies making large profits, similar to what's called the windfall tax that's been charged in Europe.
I think we should consider employing the windfall tax that other countries have already adopted.
The ruling People Power Party said that the previous Moon administration is to blame for the price surge. Song Won-seok, the chief deputy floor leader of PPP, said that the rise is due to the deficit accumulated by the previous government. Song added that the previous administration's policy focused on phasing out nuclear power generation caused a rise in electricity production costs, messing up the earnings and expenses of Korea Electric Power Corporation. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
South Korea's National Assembly will open a plenary meeting next Monday to first handle livelihood bills that the nation's ruling party and its main opposition are not at odds over. The chief deputy floor leaders of the main rivals agreed on Wednesday to shorten Parliament's ongoing extraordinary session for January to until the 1st of next month. They've decided to open February's extraordinary session the very next day, during which disputed bills are expected to be discussed. And from February 6th to the 8th, government officials will be questioned by lawmakers at the Assembly on a range of corresponding issues from diplomacy and economy to education and culture. The representative of each party's negotiation group, meanwhile, will be giving a speech the following week, starting with the Democratic Party on the 13th and the People Power Party the day after. South Korea must revamp its regulatory and labor systems to match global standards if it wants to stay competitive on the global stage. Now, these remarks were made by President Yoon at his first cabinet meeting on this Wednesday following his most recent overseas trip to the UAE and Switzerland. Do take a listen.
가장 중요한 거는 우리나라의 이 제도를 글로벌 스탠다드에 맞춰야 된다는 것입니다. 규제, 노동 이런 모든 시스템에서 이런 글로벌 스탠다드에 우리 제도를 정합시켜 나가지 않으면은 우리나라에 투자도 하지 않을 것이고 또 국제 시장에서 우리 기업이 경쟁을 하기가 어렵습니다.
Highlighting the Emiratis' investment pledge of $30 billion in his meeting with global corporate leaders in Switzerland last week, President Yoon called for swift follow-up measures on the national front. South Korea's public and private sectors are planning to join forces to strengthen the country's economic diplomacy with the United Arab Emirates. Following President Yoon Suk-yeol's recent visit to the UAE, the government says it'll make efforts to further fulfill the Korea-UAE summit with export contracts, winning large-scale projects and attracting investment. This was announced following Wednesday's meeting on South Korea's economic cooperation with the Middle East, attended by relevant ministries and private companies. Sales of Hyundai Motor's electric vehicles saw a tangible rise in the European market last year, becoming the fourth biggest player in the industry in the region. Yoon has the numbers.
In 2022, electric cars made by the Hyundai Motor Group were the fourth most purchased EVs in the top 10 main electric car sales market countries in the European Union. This is based on data for combined sales for battery electric vehicles, or BEV sales, in Norway, Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, Germany, Italy, Switzerland, Denmark, Ireland, and Finland. Those countries make up 64% of the BEV market in all of the EU. Hyundai Motor and Kia combined sold 96,988 electric vehicles in 2022, taking up 10% of the market, the fourth largest after Volkswagen at 25.6%, Stellantis at 14.1%, and Tesla at 13.4%. Geely and SAIC Motor, the two leading Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers, reached 8th and 9th places respectively in this specific European market sales category, while BYD Auto, in competition with Tesla for the #1 global market share, only took 0.4%. Sluggish growth was also seen for Japanese electric car manufacturers. Toyota only sold 7,554 electric cars in the top 10 electric vehicle purchasing European countries, Mazda 3,921, and Honda 1,274. By car model, the top 3 purchased BEVs in this EU market were the Tesla Model Y with 78,017 sales, followed by 67,049 units of the Volkswagen ID.4 and the Tesla Model 3 with 49,645 sales. While for Korean-manufactured BEVs, the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Kona Electric were the 8th and 9th most sold vehicles, the Kia Niro ranked 14th, and the Kia EV6 was 19th. Industry analysts say that Korean-manufactured battery electric vehicles are doing well in a region where brand loyalty runs deep for a leading domestic Volkswagen-manufactured EVs. Yoon, Arirang News.
Amid a chronically low birth rate in the country, the number of workers taking parental leave last year recorded an all-time high, surpassing 130,000. And among them, the proportion of men also hit a record high. In South Korea, more and more dads are taking paternity leave. Data released by the Ministry of Employment and Labor on Wednesday show 3 in 10 workers on parental leave last year were men. The number of dads on paternity leave in 2022 went up by 30.5% from the previous year, amounting to almost 38,000. This accounted for about 29% of all employees on parental leave last year, an all-time high. The proportion of men taking time off to care for their children has gradually increased in recent years from the 8.5% recorded in 2016. The ministry attributed the increase to more government support, including a bigger monthly allowance. Since last year, the maximum monthly allowance went up from around 1.2 million won, or about $970 to roughly 1.5 million won, which is about $1,200. Also, since last year, parents both using their leave at the same time within 12 months of their child's birth can get 100% of their pay for the first 3 months. These measures have also helped raise the number of men and women taking leave to a record high. Last year, it rose to more than 130,000. This is up about 20,000 or nearly 20% from 2021. The number of workers taking parental leave has also gradually risen in recent years, except in 2021 when many people worked from home due to COVID-19. But with the end of social distancing and the return to normal life, more working couples with children decided to take leave last year. To help working parents, the South Korean government is going to launch a pilot program this March, providing after-school care and education at 200 elementary schools across the country. These will be designated Nulbom schools, a name meaning always spring. The Ministry of Education said Wednesday that they'll provide childcare until 8 p.m. Currently, only about 30% of elementary schools provide childcare after 5. At Nulbom schools, kids in first grade will be able to take part in classes on the arts, music, and sports. These schools are located in Incheon, Daejeon, Gyeonggi-do Province, Jeollanam-do Province, and Gyeongsang-buk-do Province. The ministry plans to launch the program at all elementary schools across the nation by 2025. Now to the COVID-19 situation here in South Korea. With the country set to lift its indoor mask mandate next week, another question has been raised. That being, when will the mandatory quarantine stay in place? Health authorities say it's too early to make a decision. Song Yoo-jin has the details.
Starting next Monday, mask wearing indoors will no longer be required here in South Korea, except on public transport, at care facilities, and in hospitals and doctor surgeries. The only remaining social distancing rule is the 7-day mandatory quarantine for those who test positive for COVID-19.
We'll discuss whether to keep the 7-day quarantine or not after the World Health Organization ends COVID's public health emergency of international concern. We also have to consider how the country's COVID risk level will change until then.
The WHO will meet on Friday to decide whether COVID-19 is still considered to be at its highest level of emergency. On the local front, South Korea is seeing a downward trend in its virus numbers. The country saw 19,538 new COVID cases on Wednesday, down more than 17,000 from the week before and the lowest tally reported on a Wednesday since last July. Authorities say this is partly due to fewer tests over the Lunar New Year holidays. But even before the break last week, the daily number of infections averaged at around 29,800, down 30% on week. Daily averages of critically ill patients and deaths also dropped. On the back of this, the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency lowered the nationwide risk level of the virus to low from moderate for the first time in 13 weeks. Imported cases from China, a country that's grappling with an explosion of infections after scrapping its stringent virus protocols, have also decreased. Out of the 12,000 travelers who were tested upon arriving from China last week, 2.9% tested positive, a 3.1% dip from the previous week. But reinfections are still a concern. Out of all new cases logged on the second week of January, around 1 in 5 had already caught COVID before. But experts believe there won't be an uptick in case numbers as they believe the winter virus wave has already hit its peak. 송유진, Arirang News.
The U.S. believes North Korea may engage in further acts of provocation ahead of a major military anniversary. Our defense correspondent Oh Soo-young has more.
Washington is closely watching Pyongyang for signs of further advancement in its nuclear weapons program. According to Department of Defense spokesperson Pat Ryder in a press briefing on Tuesday, the United States is keeping a close eye for a potential North Korean nuclear test. This comes after months of speculation that the regime would soon be ready to conduct its seventh nuclear test after its previous round of testing in 2017. Ryder said such an action would be destabilizing for the region and that the US and its allies are preparing for the scenario. This comes amid reports that North Korea is also preparing to unveil its latest intercontinental ballistic missile, the Hwasong-17. Citing North Korea tracking website 38 North, Radio Free Asia reported that a suspicious object was detected at the Mirim military training ground where North Korean military personnel rehearse ahead of the regime's large-scale parades. The grounds also store heavy military weapons that are showcased at the main parade events. The latest satellite imagery shows a covered object about 27 meters long and 6 meters wide sitting near the secure vehicle storage area. This is presumed to be the Hwasong-17. It would be the North's biggest missile to date and the world's largest road-mobile liquid-fueled ICBM with a range of 15,000 kilometers, putting the continental US within reach. In addition to the covered object, 10 crates of various lengths were detected. 38 North says while the content is unknown, some of the crates are large enough to store a cruise missile. North Korea is expected to hold a massive military parade on February 8th to mark the 75th founding anniversary of its army. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The websites of a dozen or so academic institutions in South Korea were targeted by a Chinese hacking group during the Lunar New Year holiday. The Korea Internet and Security Agency said Wednesday that the websites included the Korea Research Institute for Construction Policy and the Korean Archaeological Society. The 12 websites remained inaccessible as of Wednesday afternoon. The hacking group identified themselves as Shaoqing and declared that they have invaded the Korean internet. It had also warned of cyber attacks on South Korean agencies. In response, the South Korean government said it'll continue to keep a close eye on the situation to prevent further attacks. 14 crew members have been rescued from a cargo ship that capsized in waters between South Korea and Japan early Wednesday morning. According to the South Korean Coast Guard of the rescued, 9 of them remain unconscious. The Hong Kong-registered Jinshan vessel was carrying 22 crew members when it sent out a distress call from its location some 150 kilometers southeast of Jeju Island due to strong winds. Joint rescue efforts between the South Korean Coast Guard and its Japanese counterparts continue for the missing other 8 crew members. 14 Chinese and 8 Burmese nationals were reportedly on board the ship. Convenience is an essential component behind customer satisfaction. And that being said, our Cho Sung-min tells us about one traditional market here in the capital city that has launched a delivery service to better cater to the customer experience. Do take a look.
Cheongyangi traditional market in the heart of Seoul. A customer is buying something from one of the fruit vendors.
사장님, 참외 한 박스 주세요. 네, 요거. 네, 배달 가능한가요?
But this is a new way of shopping. Once an order is taken, a QR code is struck on top of the item. A few moments later, someone arrives at the front of the shop, picks up the items in a cart, and goes to a small warehouse nearby. They then carefully sort the items according to which mode of transport will be used for delivery. Then they're put in a giant refrigerator until a driver picks them up. This fulfillment system has been newly implemented at this traditional market where a large-scale retailer is in charge of everything from receiving to sorting, storing, and shipping the products. Customers can now place their orders and have them delivered the next morning. And because it's fully integrated with all the different businesses in the market, it's also possible to grab items from different vendors and receive them in one batch.
There's no reason not to use it. If the quality is good, you can get things delivered.
The delivery service is available across all of Seoul and parts of Gyeonggi-do province. Vendors are hoping it boosts declining profits and the number of customers.
We try to raise our sales as much as possible through deliveries, but they can be costly and inconvenient. That's why we lost a lot of customers. We are expecting it to speed up deliveries.
While orders can be made by phone or direct visits, the market plans to install ways to receive orders online starting in January. 3 major traditional markets in Seoul will run the system before it's expanded to others nationwide. Cho Sung-min, Arirang News.
On the tech front, a local startup has devised a way of duplicating the real world into the digital world to facilitate the testing of autonomous driving and more. Jung Won-ju explains.
LiDAR, or laser imaging detection and ranging sensors, are attached to the top of a car. These sensors spin 360 degrees and scan the area to collect spatial information. The 3-dimensional road information the LiDAR collects is then moved to a virtual space on the computer. With artificial intelligence, data such as camera images, drones, and satellite air photographs are combined with the collected spatial information, and the real world is quickly duplicated into the digital world. A South Korean startup developed this digital twin technology.
It just looks like a map from afar, but if you zoom in, you can see that the map is composed of dots.
Every dot carries data on latitude and longitude. 3D high-definition maps made with such digital twin technology are already used in Gangnam and Sangam-dong, Seoul for testing autonomous driving.
3D spatial information is different from conventional 2D maps as they show information such as the shape of the road or facility locations with very high accuracy.
3D maps are needed not only for self-driving cars but also for urban aircraft mobility. This technology can also duplicate specific places and major attractions in South Korea, such as the Blue House, so they can be experienced in a 3-dimensional virtual space.
The digital twin technology is used not only for industries, but also for simulations that detect information related to urban maintenance and repair. I think applying this technology to real life will lead to innovative changes.
A 3-dimensional virtual city that changes in conjunction with the real city can be built with this technology if spatial information is updated in real time.
Our goal is to digitalize all the spaces we live in to create another world and use that digitalized world as a tool, a space that we can analyze to build a better reality.
With further development, the South Korean startup may not only duplicate space but also time. Jung Won-ju, Arirang News.
The extreme cold wave that swept across the nation for the holiday will finally ease off a tad. Temperatures will rise by about 10 degrees higher than today, with Seoul starting up at -7 degrees tomorrow. Biting cold winds will continue to follow, though, so make sure to bundle up extra warm. Temperatures will feel a couple notches lower than the actual readings. Expect another round of snowfall starting tonight. The coastlines of Gyeonggi-do and Chungcheong-do provinces will see up to 10 centimeters. For central regions and the surrounding areas, up to 7 centimeters are in the forecast. Driving conditions will be dangerous tomorrow, so it is highly recommended to give yourself some extra time for the morning commute. In the regions, we'll see minus figures for the morning hours. Chuncheon will be especially cold at -11. Highs in Seoul will get up to 0 degrees. Gwangju 5, Gyeongju and Busan will be reaching 6 degrees. A severe cold wave will make a return this weekend. On Saturday, morning temperatures will be plunging to -12 degrees. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all for this Wednesday night's newscast. Thanks for staying with us. We'll be back with the latest news tomorrow. Hope everyone stays warm. Take care.